And it's really a pleasure to welcome you all at this session for advancing renewables-based clean cooking. In fact, with this dedicated session, it's probably the first time that IRENA Assembly is bringing to its center stage the issue of clean cooking within the wider context of the global energy transition, which I guess we all understand is a really important step forward. And as we approach 2030 and take stock of progress towards SDG 7 and climate ambitions of 2050, we are also looking at a specter where the progress in the expanding access to clean cooking has been particularly slow. According to the latest SDG 7 statistics, nearly 2.4 billion lived without access to clean cooking fuels and technologies in 2020. So, while this number of people without access continues to drop, but the pace of expansion that we need to have is clearly not there. In fact, in sub-Saharan Africa, the absolute number of people reliant on wood and other fuels is growing instead of falling. So if we were really to look at a business as usual case, then probably a quarter of the world's population would still lack access to clean cooking fuels by 2030, which I'm sure you agree with me is not an acceptable outcome. And clearly when this is environmental, social, and economic cost, which is borne more by women in the family. So if the political if it doesn't become a political priority and mobilization of funds and efforts are not there to scale at the pace that we want, I think we will definitely not be able to reach the goals that we've kept for ourselves. I also want to emphasize that the solutions need to be picked up, keeping the local context in mind, and the local context being, the way the food is cooked, the affordability, and also, the way that the entrepreneurs there can actually take this on and scale it up. So while we do think that renewables-based clean cooking solutions, whether they're bioenergy-based solutions or renewable electric solutions, they are going to be increasingly deployed and will play a crucial role with important co-benefits in job creation, agriculture development, and demand simulation. But despite all of this, we do see that the renewables-based options are clearly underrepresented in the global discourse on clean cooking. So today, as we are gathered here, I think it's important for us to share lessons and experience on policy, financing, local value chains, and enterprise development, and talk about these aspects in the context of scaling up renewables-based clean cooking solutions. We look forward also to hearing how IRENA's ongoing activities can be strengthened to support both regional and national efforts in this space. And we are also pleased to say that we have received support from many member states in this endeavor. In particular, I would like to thank the UAE, with whom we have launched the Beyond Food initiative last year, aiming to accelerate access to clean cooking solutions in low resource settings through women-oriented entrepreneurial support, integrating electric cooking in national NDC and long-term strategies, as well as outreach and advocacy. So we hope that through this very action-oriented partnerships, we can shift the needle on clean cooking agenda and align it well with the global sustainable development and climate objectives. So with this, I'd like to hand the floor back to Ute Kolia and Amjad Abdullah, who will deliver the scene setting presentation and take us through this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gauri. So we will kick this off with a short scene setting presentation, and then afterwards we will invite a number of member states who've already expressed interest and obviously open up to any other member states. And we also have a number of observers. So we should be getting some interesting perspectives from both countries who have a clean cooking deficit themselves, from some of the donors, and from organizations who are trying to implement solutions on the ground. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing that. So let us just start with our quick scene setting presentation. So I'll kick off, and then Amjad Abdullah, who's from our country engagement and partnership division, will take over. So do we have the slides? Waiting. Yeah, right. Thank you very much, Divyan. Okay. So we've already heard from in Gauri's introductory remarks that in terms of progress towards clean cooking, we're really lagging behind. So the latest estimates from our joint SDG 7 tracking report, and I'm sure many of you know that, but it suggests that we need to make much faster progress. But let's start with actually a figure that isn't all that negative. I mean, we do have more than 2/3 of people with access to clean cooking. It's not as much as electricity, but it is nevertheless a figure which has improved over time. However, in terms of overall numbers, it's 2.4 billion people. And I always find it amazing when I mention this figure, especially in the developed world, very few people seem to have an idea about the scale of this problem. Everyone always talks about electricity access, and those of us working in clean cooking, of course, know very well that this is always something that sort of gets left behind and not totally ignored, but there's certainly a lack of awareness. So the issue we have is that at present rate of progress, we're absolutely nowhere near achieving the SDG 7 target. We think that by 2030, we're still going to have 2 billion people without access to clean cooking. And the problem, of course, is particularly severe in certain regions. This is the figure which clearly shows, of course, in the global north, generally there is 100% clean cooking access. Then we do have some issues in Asia, but this is actually the region where we have seen most of the progress. And then the big problem of sub-Saharan Africa, where in terms of absolute numbers, we actually have seen an increase of people without access to clean cooking related to population growth from 745 million to 923 million. Of course, here at IRENA, we look at the whole energy transition picture, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with our World Energy Transitions Outlook, where we, of course, very focused on what we need to do to stay within the 1.5 degree limit. And we do draw attention to the fact that clean cooking actually needs to be addressed to allow us to reach that 1.5 degree scenario, because at the moment, as you can see there, it's the circled green bit, biomass for cooking actually takes up a lot of energy consumption. And of course, most of it is done in a very unsustainable way. As we move towards 2050, we really, from a climate perspective, we need to see that unsustainable biomass replaced by cleaner solutions. And amongst those are, of course, renewables. And people are often not thinking of clean cooking being a renewables-based solutions, but there are many of them: biofuels, biomethane, and also renewables-based electric cooking. We will hear more about that later. So what's the status of the clean cooking solutions at the moment? So just to give you the global perspective. So we do have the global population relying on traditional biomass only marginally reduced. We actually have charcoal use expanding, mainly in urban areas. And of course, a lot of that is unsustainable in terms of the value chains, which needs to change. We have seen a lot of progress through gases solutions, but that's mainly been through LPG, which has expanded in both urban and rural areas, although in sub-Saharan Africa, it's mostly in urban areas. At IRENA, we've looked specifically at biogas, and we do collect statistics on that. So we think there are around 123 million people using biogas for cooking, mainly in Asia. Electric cooking adoption is expanding, but the growth is mostly limited to urban areas. And then we have an underlying trend of fuel stacking. So how do we change all this? Of course, it's a very complex picture, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot from our countries and observers about this in a moment. But there's clearly a need for a lot of intervention from governments, from donors, from all sorts of organizations to help address this problem, which is very complex. It's about policy attention, where we need things like prioritization of clean cooking, about tackling cost and finance barriers, bolstering supply chains, and also creating awareness about both the impacts and solutions. So what are we doing here at IRENA to help address this issue? So we're working across a number of thematic areas to support the adoption. We are looking at clean cooking policy and financing analysis. We're leading outreach efforts, which are to do with IRENA's data gathering and reporting. As I said to you, collecting things like the biogas data. We facilitate knowledge sharing of case studies and country level experiences. We're creating platforms for entrepreneurship support, and we work with countries to integrate clean cooking into NDCs and long-term strategies. One example is our recent initiative, we already mentioned it, Beyond Food, the clean cooking platform, which has been launched in partnership with the UAE. So I now hand over to my colleague Amjad to take us through that in more detail. Thanks, Amjad.
Thank you very much, Ute. Thank you. I think has been said by Ute and of course by our Deputy Director General Gauri Singh. The IRENA UAE, in collaboration with NAMA Women, we established the joint Beyond Food Clean Cooking platform in March last year to facilitate increased access to clean energy and by fostering cooperation and coordinating actions focused on policy, enterprise development, gender equality, entrepreneurship, and financing facility. In this one, there are three key pillars, that is promoting twinning support for renewable energy enterprise development, promoting electrification of cooking. The third one is supporting women renewable energy entrepreneurs. According to estimates, an annual investment of $4.5 billion is required to achieve universal access to clean cooking by 2030. According to IRENA, we will primarily support financing facilitation through a climate investment platform and the Energy Transition Accelerating Financing Platform and other potential funding avenues. Just to go on more detail on pillar one, is of an enterprise twinning program which will be implemented for entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa to be twinned with a large enterprise from IRENA member states and other regions. The specific objective of the ETP is to provide business-to-business mentorship through collaborative efforts. Such efforts are expected to build local enterprise capacity for planning and implementation of ambitious national programs in least developed countries, in particular in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. The expected outcomes of the pillars are to contribute to increase renewable energy generation and end-use electrification through business enhancement, exchanges, and financing linkages to support climate action and commitment. To contribute to increase dissemination and adoption of renewable energy and end-use electrification technologies. Increased body of knowledge on renewable enterprise in IRENA member countries that can be drawn upon from private sector engagement. To strengthen partnership networks in and between IRENA member countries among regional international organizations to enhance support frameworks and opportunities for renewable energy enterprise. The ETP will target the following: small and medium renewable energy enterprises, active in renewable energy and end-use electrification. Enterprises that are integrating or mainstreaming renewable energy and electrification in their business operations, focusing on women and youth-led businesses. The Pillar 2, promoting electrification for cooking. The objective of the pillar is to assist countries with clean cooking commitments in their NDCs through the consideration of opportunities for electric cooking and other innovative end-use electrification. Under this pillar, IRENA is carrying out a study on clean cooking commitments in NDC submissions by IRENA member states to identify possible support for countries that meet clean cooking targets in their NDCs. The primary scope of the ongoing study, which would include analysis of the current landscape of clean cooking commitments related to climate action and electric cooking opportunities, development of country engagement plans, development of strategy and action plans to facilitate clean cooking finance, publication of clean cooking and climate action through expected to be completed later this year. Pillar 3, supporting women renewable energy enterprise. Women entrepreneurs play an important role in economic development by creating jobs and boosting gender equality in their workforces. However, women entrepreneurs and women-led SMEs face a number of challenges that include access to capital and technology, lack of networks and knowledge resources, limited market linkages, challenging social and cultural norms, as well as legal, regulatory, and policy obstacles to business ownership and development. The specific objective of this pillar is to empower and build the capacity of women entrepreneurs in the Southern African region, as well as the small island development states through an entrepreneurship support facility by providing a technical support and mentorship platform and facilitate access to finance. The primary expected outcomes are to increase energy transition and achievement of clean cooking and energy access by strengthening Sub-Saharan African women entrepreneurs through tailored business support and technical assistance. To strengthen capacity for women's financial skills, understanding of financing products and business development. Strengthen collaboration between financial institutions, impact investor or venture capital firms, and renewable energy initiatives. To increase the number of women entrepreneurs in renewable energy and improve to access to finance. I thank you very much. Hand over to Ute.
Thank you, Amjad. Okay, so we are now going to invite the interventions. We've circulated a number of guiding questions, so of course you can pick whichever one you like. I know a lot of you have already expressed a preference.
Recording
So I would
stop.
like to start with the Deputy Minister from
Recording in
Liberia.
progress.
Please, sir, give us your perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Arena, for organizing this important session during this important event. The government of Liberia is cognizant of the fact that energy efficiency and conservation practices across all energy forms and usages have important policy and socio-economic development dimensions. The Ministry of Mines and Energy in Liberia is the chief lead in the energy sector to formulate policies and has oversight responsibilities on the energy sector. Liberia, as a member of the Mano River Union, a sub-regional organization in West Africa, participated in a conference on renewable energy and clean cooking solutions in the region. Participants at that conference formally endorsed the adoption of the Freetown Declaration to exhibit true leadership and increase efforts to explore joint measures to develop the renewable energy sector and clean cooking solutions in the region. In particular, cooking energy in Liberia is still heavily relied on traditional or clean methods. More than 95% of people in Liberia use traditional woody biomass. And the inefficient use of these traditional cooking methods by urban and rural populations poses environmental threats and health problems through deforestation and indoor air pollution. What is the government of Liberia initiative? What are the initiatives undertaken by the government of Liberia to improve clean cooking solutions? Liberia has a couple of few instruments that are in place and under development to facilitate improvement in clean cooking solutions. And so we have a policy, 2009, called the National Energy Policy that is revised 2022, and the 2016 National Energy Efficiency Action Plan to meet our Sustainable Development Goal 2030, and the 2022 Draft National Bioenergy Action Plan for Liberia. These policies address two key important sectors for clean cooking solutions: an efficient charcoal value chain and an improved coastal value chain. The government has therefore endorsed a couple of few private actors to increase the share of the population served with clean fuels for cooking. In collaboration with a locally owned Liberian company that is in the fabrication of pilot mentor kilns for efficient and profitable charcoal production. And a German government-funded organization called NDEF is currently in the production of energy-efficient charcoal stoves in Liberia at a cost of $14 to $30, excuse me. Initially, they produced 1,300 stoves, and all were sold in 2016. And the process is still ongoing. So we implored the efforts made by our partners. For regional cooperation, Liberia is involved with ECOWAS to popularize liquefied petroleum gas as domestic cooking energy. And Liberia is also in collaboration with the Mano River Union, also with the Energy Nexus Network to support the development of renewable energy sector and address clean cooking challenges. What are our challenges as a government? No incentivizing interventions and solutions to address the underlying needs of lower income and rural households. Complex and fragmented cooking ecosystem for both supply and demand side of the sector. In Liberia, we have low champions and no intergovernmental coordination. And Liberia, as you are aware, Liberia has the highest legislative tariff rate in the world. And so to convince our population to transition from clean cooking to clean cooking solutions is very difficult for us, unless we reduce our legislative tariff. And Our policy recommendations and strategies are to develop the institutions and infrastructure towards product and service delivery in the sector, to assist households to reduce their dependence on traditional fuels for household cooking by adapting clean cooking solutions, the LPG and improved charcoal stoves, and to increase the share of the population served with modern fuel alternatives, including LPG for cooking, for the 1% by 2030, and by raising awareness, reducing import tariff and other incentives to service providers as well. To increase the share of efficient charcoal production 80% by 2030 by promoting and incentivizing the private sector, and improve income among rural inhabitants to afford improved cost stoves. That is for the government library to provide subsidy and incentives with the help of our donor partners, and also to increase awareness on the health issues surrounding with unclean methods of cooking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, Manu River Union, let me just flag our lunchtime event tomorrow, which will be on renewables in the Manu River Union. So please join us there as well. Could I please invite United Arab Emirates, Dr. Nawal?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for this extremely enlightening presentation and for bringing to our attention, which is something that we have been extremely passionate about, solutions for a challenge that is actually global embarrassment that we are still suffering from. And as we heard, we still have more than 2.4 billion people that are still relying on traditional fuels. I have to say, we heard about Beyond Food, which is the initiative that we launched with Irina, something that is we are extremely proud of, because as we can see in the modern world where we have the latest technologies and those rapid advancement in AI, and the situation is still extremely difficult to comprehend when it comes to the cooking solutions. We think that the lack of access to clean energy fuels for people is simply unacceptable by any standards, and that's why we are putting a lot of focus on Beyond Food, because we think it's an important first step to overcoming those conditions. I would like to highlight in this intervention that the focus we have on women is very crucial. Women are one of the main beneficiaries of the clean cooking solutions. And as we've seen in many of those interventions, and in this session and other sessions, they remain extremely underrepresented at the decision-making table, at the policy-making level, and when it comes to access to climate finance, entrepreneurship support. Women renewable energy entrepreneurs, including those in the clean cooking space, remain marginalized, and they continue to face challenges in setting up and leading renewable energy enterprises. So in this context, we believe it is vital that we build, strengthen, and deepen international cooperation efforts to enable women to become clean cooking trailblazers. It is vital that we proactively include more women, especially those from climate vulnerable areas, in the decision-making process. It is also extremely vital that we galvanize this widespread international support for greater climate finance for more national development programs and initiatives. And it is vital that we encourage female entrepreneurship to help develop local capabilities. We've been saying this, and maybe you heard, some of you, the speech of His Excellency Dr. Sultan this morning as he spoke. He's presented our national statement, and it is a representation of our national position. We must work together. We must work together in all aspects, but we need to be together to shore up local value chains and develop more resilient supply chains that is so crucial to goods, commodities, technologies, and that we need them to reach the places that need them most. So I hope next time when we sit around and have a discussion about clean cooking, I hope that we'll have made a little bit more than a dent in this unacceptable figure of 2.4 billion people lacking this access. But that will not be enough. We will not succeed until we are all of us, every community and every person have full access to those tools and technologies. So anything less than that, I believe, will be a failure of the institution that we designed to ensure a just and inclusive energy transition. So thank you for giving me the floor, and I look forward to hearing more from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Germany, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you especially, Arena, for the numbers, because we could see really the serious problem we have to solve, and even the big gap to 2030, especially in Africa, where the inhabitants, the number of inhabitants are increasing. And what we see at the ground is that we have the deforestation, we have a lot of health problems, and we have violence or a time the women need to look for the wood. So we have to solve a lot of problems. And we need the woman because it's really a sensitive and very emotional issues, because every family needs food every day and it must work. So I think most important is that we now can look for more innovative solutions. At the beginning, when we started, we were looking for efficient stoves, and now we are looking a bit more for biogas digesters, or even more and more for electric cooking. But first, I think it's very important that we are looking for international cooperation. And my colleague, my neighbor from Liberia mentioned NDEF, and that's an initiative we started with the Netherlands, and we will hear, I think, in this session, a lot of NDEF. We started many years ago, and we reached more than 26 million people for better cooking situation and better energy access. That were really the goals for this initiative. And we are doing this project in 21 countries in Asia, Africa, or South America. And we are doing this with a lot of countries. So that's Germany, that's especially the Netherlands. They play a big role in this program, but also Norway was participating, or Great Britain, Switzerland, or Sweden, even for a time. So, and I think that is important to look for financial situation and to have better access. For example, from the GIZ, we supported the Green Cooking Forum 2022 in October in Accra, where we were talking about a lot of new initiatives, and NDEF shows transformation and innovation at this conference, and gave a lot of money. And the other idea we have for looking for money is a Green Climate Fund project. We started with Kenya and Senegal. And the idea was that we are looking for improved cooking stoves. Especially, we made a study of biodigesters components, and we noticed that they are functioning. So we can work with it, but we must work with the women in all these cases, because otherwise we will not be successful. And if we are looking for this, for example, Green Climate Fund project in Kenya and Senegal, we make something like a market transformation, because we have a lot of small entrepreneurs now, and we are looking for train them for better market access, for better professional production. And so that means so we can increase the number of products and increase the number of families who have better solutions for clean cooking. And on the other side, it's really a benefit for the NDCs. For example, in this program, we can reduce the CO2 emission to 25 megatons till 2030. So there are a lot of components we can reach, and we would like to reach with this Green Climate Fund project. We would like to reach more than 11 million people, about 2 million households, and 30% of them headed only by women. So we have a special component in this program for support women, and even we reach nearly 6 million children. So we would like to concentrate on different countries. Even we have some programs, for example, in Malawi, or as I told, in Kenya. So we are working together with Kenya with a clean cooking strategy in this country. And I think concentrating, looking for solutions where we can upscale in other countries, that must be the solution we are working for.
Thank you very much. And in fact, we had a small IRENA delegation at the Clean Cooking Forum in Accra, and despite all the stark numbers, there was a real sort of atmosphere of optimism, which was great. So let me pass over to the Netherlands. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting a discussion session on clean cooking. It is a very relevant topic. At the same time, it is a topic that is mentioned. It's included in the energy scenarios, but I still guess many people don't recognize it. And it's sort of a topic, you can only see it when you understand it. And that is sort of driving the message home that this doesn't get the attention it's needed. In a way, that's part of a broader discussion we would like to have with IRENA. Is that the energy transition and energy itself is not a product in itself, in its own right. It's not an end product. It's a service. It's a service to society. And with the energy transition, we are changing society. It's a socio-economic change in a broader way than just the advancement of certain technologies. That is really important to understand. Definitely when there's inequalities part of that, and there's a strong gender element, obviously here, it's obviously women and young children in the kitchen suffering the pollution, collecting the fuels, suffering the health damage, stuck in poverty. But it's also the potential to have women and young people as agents of change. So definitely it's a broad transition. And when we talk about energy transition, what I have come to realize is that very often people look at the introduction of electricity as really transformational and changing the way that a whole society can function. Definitely, we shouldn't underestimate clean cooking, and the introduction of new cooking solutions deserves similar attentions. It is not a quick fix which we can get fixed by 2030. It's a transition which will definitely accompany our transition towards net zero 2050, and that is sort of the fundamental thinking. So on behalf of the Netherlands, let me say we are really strongly committed to help the most vulnerable people to leapfrog to the sustainable energy pathways, the beautiful language, I think, which we share, all of us. In practice, what does it mean? We raised last year our ambition. What can we do with our financial support from reaching 50 million people by 2030 to reaching 100 million people by 2030, in which we focus on electricity access and we focus on clean cooking, and we limit our interventions really to renewable-based solutions. So how do we go about that? It's basically three things. There's one, how do we actually raise the political priority for clean cooking? How do we attract more action, more actors in this field? Part of our work is, for instance, with the Clean Cooking Alliance, to make sure that that's really a platform. The Clean Cooking Forum, which you mentioned, is a very relevant event for that. The second one is funding market creation, and the delegate from Germany already mentioned the NDEF program, which plays a central role. We try to combine as much as possible all of our implementing partners with feet on the ground, with activities on the ground under that umbrella, so that we can really make it important and fund it at scale. So we are currently preparing doubling our finance for that program. And the third one is, how do we actually take it from the market creation to the real scale, and the level of funding which is needed there? And that's the point we were very happy to start contributing and working with the World Bank Clean Cooking Fund. Say, this is really a fund out there for governments to say we can take this to scale as part of national energy transition plans. Similarly, on the private sector side, definitely finance needs to increase, and that's what we are working on very much with our development finance institution, FMO. There's one thing I would like to just emphasize a little bit, is that there is, of course, a big opportunity in carbon finance, in particular in selling carbon credits. And there's a lot of opportunities, but also there's a lot of risks there. That was the reason why yesterday, Yabei Zhang of the World Bank and myself released a blog, sort of trying to say, can we come together on how we approach that? This is not a market which should go into the direction of give away cook stoves, which will disturb any future innovation we want to have. We've learned a lot. We have models. How do we proceed from that? Final point, if you allow me, is so what will be the role for ARENA in this space? And for me, it's really interesting. The first time we're actually discussing this in this house. I think two things. One is, it is very important that we raise political priority for the issue of clean cooking as part of the work. And that's why I started with that. It was good to see it in the Energy Transitions Outlook, but I guess many people reading that will only focus on the power generation side of the report, and not understand really that in-depth change which has to happen. We are, of course, discussing these issues around in the context of the SDG 7 discussions, the high-level political forum at the UN, the high-level dialogue on energy. We have the Health and Energy Platform of Action to also involve the health sector, which has an important role to play here, coordinated by WHO. The Clean Cooking Forum you mentioned, we're very happy to have it as a prominent topic on the SE for All Forum. But still more needs to be done, a lot more needs to be done. And in particular, that's my second point of advice, is how do we package clean cooking with energy transition agendas and roadmaps? That is really a challenge which I would like to put out there for ARENA. Can we work on that? So just to give one example, if a utility is implementing an electricity access program, very often the remark is that the business case doesn't add up. You're providing expensive electricity to rural households, which will maybe only use the electricity for a couple of lights, maybe a television, and charging the mobile phones. If you can add to that the electric cooking, it's just an example. The business case makes a lot more sense. So can we figure out ways to exchange in the context of ARENA, to say, when there's an energy transition roadmap, how do you integrate clean cooking, and how do we make sure it really brings us to the next step to reach scale on the solutions which indeed we have on the table right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we're very happy to follow up with you on this. Nepal, please.
Thank you very much. Distinguished delegates, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank to the Secretariat for this opportunity to share our aspirations and initiatives towards achieving clean cooking solutions for all in Nepal. Let me start with our commitment in the clean energy transition and the clean cooking solutions, which is very basics for Nepal to transition to clean energy. We have abundant hydropower potential in our country, and it's about 83,000 megawatt. And all of it, almost all of it, 98% of the total generations in Nepal is hydropower, which is already renewable. So only thing we have to do is we have plenty of clean energy available with us, and we are planning to replace all traditional and petroleum coal-based sources of energies, biomasses, all by hydropower to transition to clean energy. So I express our country's full commitment in this clean energy transition as well as clean energy, clean cooking solutions. If you see the total energy pie of Nepal, about 65% energy is contributed by biomass, and majority of it is used for cooking. But given the abundant potential, we want to gradually replace it with the clean energy of electricity. If I compare the data with before 10 years, where the energy from biomass was about 80%, now it has reduced to 65%. Still significant portion of it is used for cooking, but we have increased the use of LPG as a cooking fuel. So in a way, we have done away with the dirty sources of cow dung and woods, and we have done away with the kitchen health problem. But still, we have faced the problem of, very big trade deficit by importing this big LPG source for cooking from India. So we want to still, reduce the trade deficit by increasing our stake of hydropower into the clean energy cooking. We have a nationally determined contributions set for our country. By 2020, we want to generate, 15,000 megawatt of clean energy hydropower. And we want to ensure that 15% of the total energy demand is supplied from the clean energy sources. For clean cooking solutions, by 2030, we want to ensure that 25% of the households are supplied with electric cooking stoves, and our emission reductions are reduced by that time by 8.6 million metric ton of CO2 equivalent. And we also plan to install 5,000 improved cooking stoves by 2025. Now, to meet these targets, what are we doing now and what are our policy initiatives? Government started the Clean Cooking Solutions campaign in 2013, and subsequently it adopted the biomass energy strategy in 2017. The biomass energy strategy envisions, attaining 100% clean cooking through improved cooking stoves by 2030. For that, we have already launched the Tarai Clean Cooking Program. Tarai is a flatland in Nepal with a huge population. And we also have gone for promotion of electric cooking in that Tarai area with partnerships with the local governments. And also we have launched a program specially to provide the electric cooking stoves to the students coming to Kathmandu for their higher study from different parts of the country. So these are the initiatives that we have taken to move forward with the clean cooking. Currently, we have 440,000 household biogas already in place, 355 institutional biogas already in place, and more than 1,500,000 of improved cooking stoves already implemented, and then around 23,000 electric cooking stoves. So to we have used resources for clean energy, clean cooking solutions, but we want use international support for implementing this program or using those sources for clean cooking solutions. An example of international supports we got is we have been our Alternative Energy Promotion Center has been a direct access entity accredited to Green Climate Fund, and it's going to implement the very first project on clean cooking solutions only, which has a total value of $49.2 million, with $21.2 million as a grant. And this program is designed to promote some 500,000 electric stoves and 490,000 improved cooking stoves and 10,000 household biogas plants in Nepal's Tarai region. And the modality will be, collaborating with the local governments and private sectors to attain these objectives. We have taken some important policy measures. I'm just going to conclude.
Thank you.
We have taken some policy measures to implement these programs effectively. We are developing standards for electric induction cooker and infrared induction cookers. And we have planned to go for testing of e-cookie stoves at renewable energy testing station. And we want to upgrade transmission and distribution infrastructures across the country so that we can use whatever we generate. We're actually going surplus in hydropower generation in our country, though seasonally. So we want to use all that surplus in our country, especially for expanding these electric cookings. So for that we have to upgrade these infrastructures, and we have revised our tariff, which encourages to people to use electricity more and more so that they can use it for clean cooking. We have set the tariff in a way that the tariff rate decreases when we consume more and more. And other important things I want to flag here is that we have special mechanisms for cross-border trade, and we are doing power transactions with India. Whatever is surplus in Nepal, we want to sell it to neighboring countries, and we want to also contribute to emission reduction of those countries by selling our clean hydropower. And for induction stoves, we have policy to reduce these custom duties, etc. So the best modality we are thinking is to implement these programs effectively is that we are planning to collaborate with the subnational governments, provincial and local governments, in terms of setting priorities, identifying their needs, and also the readiness of the infrastructures in these governments. So we want to implement phase-wise programs in those subnational levels. We are collaborating with the Nepal Electricity Authority for electrifying the country 100% within the 2 years. And we are, checking out plans. We are devising plans so that the upfront financial burden is minimized to the marginal consumers who want to go for electric cooking as soon as possible. So I want to stop it now. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to Norway next, but could I please remind all speakers to stick to 4 minutes because we still have a lot of interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me start with asking the question, why shouldn't we all, and especially women and children, be able to breathe clean air in their homes? That's the issue that we are grappling with here. And for me, this is a collective failure by all of us, because the progress we have made is just utterly catastrophic, to use those words, because this is an area that has not been prioritized. So that's why I welcome this discussion. I'm really pleased to see that Irina now has put maybe the most critical development challenge on our agenda. the issue of clean cooking. And I don't think I heard the word clean cooking mentioned at all in the assembly hall this morning. So we definitely have, we that are speechwriters and giving notes to our masters, we need to ensure that they are also including this agenda because it deserves a thorough discussion. So how to make this a priority, how to go forward. First, let me offer at least some suggestions from our side. We need to clearly define whose problem this is. Of course, it is the problem of the households. They have to deal with it themselves. But in terms of the political side, is it the responsibility of the energy minister or the health minister? There are many ministries involved in this agenda. And of course, that brings up the whole issue of coordination and prioritization across the various pillars of the government. So in many cases, this issue of clean cooking falls between the cracks. But having said that, I think moving forward, I think we could benefit, or at least we will take advantage of focusing more strongly maybe on the climate impacts. There's 1 gigaton of emissions that we have to reduce. So if we can use climate more as an entry point into our discussions, at least I think that we should pursue this. This is 2% of global emissions. So there's a clear case for action that we can make. But having said this, I'm actually pleased to note that some progress are being made. 70 countries have prepared clean cooking strategies. And of course, now, like it was said this morning over at in the big hall, now the focus should be on implementation and we need to deliver. Of course, when we are moving towards implementation and we have to deliver, then the issue of finance always pops up, and how to move from 160 million a year to 25 billion a year. At least I've seen that's what it takes. There are different numbers out there, but anyway, it's a huge funding gap that we need to look into. I don't have the answer how to plug that gap, but I think that carbon finance could offer a promising avenue that we need to further look into. And then the issue of technologies. From my perspective, I welcome all technologies that improves the life of people. And when you want to climb the energy ladder, normally the way we climb the ladder is 1 step at a time. And we need to take the time in order to get to the top, to the best solution that gives us the most benefit. So for me also, I've noted that in the many actors discard the option of using, for instance, LPG. For me, that is not acceptable because that is also part of the solution, and it's up to countries to pursue the technologies that they deem fit in their own settings. Finally, I note around this table that one of the clean cooking leaders champions is missing, and I see, but she's in the room. Sheila from Energia is sitting in the back there. So if the moderator and Irina allows, and if time allows, maybe she could also be given the floor to give her perspectives into this, because I see there are representatives from other organizations around this table today. And we need global leadership on this issue. And I think that is, for me, the critical part, finding the champions and the leaders that will actually make a career out of promoting clean cooking. And I don't see that we have today. But if we collectively can find someone who can take on this job, that would be great. The Norwegian government is committed to clean cooking. That's a key priority for us, and we are supporting a number of mechanisms and entities in moving clean cooking forward, but I don't want to spend time on elaborating on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me go to Panama next. In fact, we didn't mention Central America before, but of course it is also still an issue with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moderator, for giving me the floor. In Panama, around 66,000 families does not have access to clean cooking, and that is located mainly 1% in urban areas, and 25% of the rural families doesn't have access to clean cooking. And that number represents around 4.5% in our energy matrix. But for me, the number that is more important is that 400 20 people is dying by premature deaths because of it yearly. And 20 of them, 21 actually, are children under 5 years old. And if we are talking about energy transition, if we are talking about sustainable development, every single talent is needed in order to assure that we are going to achieve 2030 in a sustainable manner. So talent doesn't have a face, doesn't have a race, talent doesn't have a gender. And as part of the energy policy that we are promoting in Panama is to really make a sustainable, just and inclusive energy transition. And to do so, including in our energy transition agenda, we have developed a universal access energy strategy that is looking forward to assure that we are complying with universal access to renewable energy, but also to clean cooking. And one of the things that we are implementing as a holistic energy transition agenda is that the savings that the government is doing by implementing energy efficiency, the savings that the government is doing by implementing distributed generation is going to the Energy Transition Fund that has 6 windows, and one of the windows is universal access to energy, in order to assure that the distribution of the winning part of the energy transition is also designed to assure that we are closing the gap sooner and faster. And also for us, it's very important to highlight what Germany said before. There is an important time that mainly women are investing collecting firewood in order to cook. And when we design and implement our Women and Energy Nexus roadmap, we went to the rural areas. We went to the different areas that doesn't have access to clean cooking, and they said that what usually took them around 30 minutes to gather the firewood, now it takes more than 2 hours and a half. And that's also related with the type of families that we are going to build, the type of obstacles that our rural areas are facing in order to assure that they have a decent way of living. And one of the things that we are also focusing the most is capacity building related to the inclusion of women and families in the solution for universal access to energy, to electricity, to clean cooking. And right now we are working with the World Bank in order to develop a market study for clean cooking. And after that, we are implementing a clean cooking plan to assure that we achieve 2030 with these 66,000 families with access to it, but including the participation of the private sector in order to enable the environment not only to be financed by the government, but also as entrepreneurship from the private sector as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sierra Leone, Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In order to avoid repeating, I want to associate myself with the statements of Netherlands and Norway. And first, on Sierra Leone, we've prioritized clean cooking. We helped, thanks to the minister from Liberia for mentioning the forum we hosted together with Badel Hone and her team and NDEV and others back in 2019. So Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, we've all prioritized clean cooking. NDEV helped Sierra Leone do a clean cooking compact. The challenge now is how do you translate the aspirations into real practical action on the ground, on the policy side, and of course, in terms of developing programs. And the local NDEV office is beginning to do that right now. But let me move macro to some of the issues raised. We thank Irina, in fact, for organizing this the first time. Thank you for doing this. We want your leadership here. We thank the UAE for the new program you've launched. I think the focus on electric cooking is important. We would want to encourage you to look at mini grids. How does clean cooking become an extra load for mini grids? Simon and I, we call it mini grids 2.0. There's a lot of money beginning to go into mini grids. My country, we already have 100. We're doing another 50. EU is investing in another 50 now. But we ask the question, can cooking loads be part of that? And so we think we need the support of IRENA to begin to look at that technically and also intellectually. How do we make that happen? On the bigger issue, it is a shame that it is still the same small handful of donors that are still supporting this. The money is minuscule. They're doing their best. So I want to suggest to Netherlands, Germany, and Norway to do what they did for us for SDG 7. We used to have these regular donor roundtables, and some of you used to host for us. And I know when Norway is hosting, they will invite Sweden, Finland, and others to join. We played that trick back in 2008, going to 2012. And so we got support for SDG 7. So I want to say now, with the support of Nawal and others, now UAE, let's develop this critical mass and you leverage your politics. So Nawal, I'm hoping, Dr. Nawal, that in fact COP28, we make it big. We work with Sultan. I know Sultan, what he does when he wants to pick up something, and he helped us with SDG 7. Let's make it real. We need, and why these donors? You're the same people in the World Bank. You're the same people in African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank. If you don't say it's a priority, it is not a priority. People will put 5 million. And that's what we've suffered for 30 years. You give 5 million, feel good, it's done. No, we're talking, as all have said, we need billions now. So I would encourage you, use your political clout. That's what you did for us for SDG 7, but you come together. Germany hosts a meeting, invites their own friends. Norway the same. And then we go around and push the multilaterals to also leverage and de-risk money going in. I met with some multilaterals here. I'm still hearing 10 million, 15 million. I was very disappointed that, hey, after all the reports you have done, IRENA, World Bank, and everybody else, we're still putting chicken change into clean cooking. The other point I want to make is that utilities. It is time we brought the utilities into this conversation. They're still the ones expanding the grids. We need their help. In some other countries, utilities have also jumped in to even bring in the stoves and so on to lower the cost. Climate finance is going to be important. A good example here is what Cocoa has been doing, Cocoa Networks has been doing in Kenya. They're using climate finance to drive down the cost for clean cooking technologies to get into households. Another group, ATEC, is also doing the same thing, using climate finance to get electric cooking into homes. Climate finance is going to be crucial. But here again, the same donors are in the Green Climate Fund. If you don't make it an issue, they will not pick it up. Finally, look, the evidence is clear now. We are not going to meet the targets in 2030. I mean, when Dr. Nawal, Sheila, myself, Hans, a lot, 2008, when we started hammering on clean cooking, we were talking 1.4 billion people without. If we're saying by 2030 it's going to be 2.4 billion, means we've done nothing. Very little, really. So I'm asking the question, shouldn't we be thinking post 2030? We know we're not going to get there. What do we do different? How do we begin to build that political momentum we built for SDG 7? And of course here, IRENA, SC for all, we're going to need you to move this forward. So I think that's where I'll stop. But thank you very much for doing what you're doing now. The data is important, but we need the political clout now. And I know Dr. Nawal knows how to help manage that political leverage. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Zimbabwe next, but can I please give you another reminder? We're almost out of time, and I've still got a long list of people. So please limit your interventions. Also, if there's any other countries, please put up, yeah, there's India and Kenya. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to participate. I'll also not repeat maybe what most of the people have said, but I just want to thank IRENA for the statistics, which from our side are confirmed by our recent census, where we still have 60% of the cooking coming from firewood, which is mainly traditional cooking, means of cooking, yet access is over 60%. So we still have over 2 million households who are using traditional means of cooking. And it's quite important to see the topic now being on the agenda. And we believe that it will be taken further to a point where it's fully addressed as we move forward. But I would like to then quickly highlight the issues which Zimbabwe is doing to ensure that we move away from this increased number of people who are still using traditional fuels. The first issue is to look at clean cooking solutions targeting efficient cook stoves using the same firewood, where we are saying our communities can still use firewood as a resource, but using it sustainably. And we have designed through private sector participation and also various partners who have helped us to design clean cooking stoves which women themselves can build in their own communities, some using clay and a few other types of equipment to make them more efficient, but also to allow for the safe evacuation of gases out of the room so that we reduce indoor pollution, which is one of the biggest killers for most women in rural communities and children. We would also like to see the value chains for the clean cooking using mostly local materials. And we have worked with a number of entrepreneurs who have come up with that. What we have also done is to look at biogas as an alternative and more sustainable way of cooking. Whilst we have seen the increase in the uptake of LPG gas, especially in urban communities, we believe that there is enough waste in rural communities which will allow for sustainable clean cooking using biogas, because it also is used together with the organic fertilizer, which can also increase the productivity for rural communities. What is the role of IRENA, which I see being critical in bringing the question of clean cooking? Already what we have done today is a step forward, and we believe we need more of this. We would like to appreciate the work which is being done by the likes of Germany, Netherlands, and others here, including UAE, in funding programs where we target entrepreneurs who can come up with clean cooking solutions. And we believe that as a country, we are developing a clean cooking framework, which will then help us to come up with a strategy to then do a more consolidated way of addressing the issue of clean cooking. We've done a lot of initiatives through various stakeholders and partners, but we are now trying to consolidate it into one single large program, which will then need funding. My last comment is to go back to what Sierra Leone said. We are looking at increasing access and achieving universal access using mini-grids. But mini-grids cannot carry the loads for cooking, especially if we are looking at electricity. And our own current economic states and the people who are talking about where we want to put mini-grids will not afford the electricity for cooking. So we need a more holistic way of addressing the issue of clean cooking, especially if we are looking at electricity. We are struggling to get funding to fund renewable energy projects which can address access and increase access to electricity. How about clean cooking? So it's something which we really have to take seriously, given that for us in our own communities, it's a real issue. It's not theoretical. People are dying every day and they're not able to meet, and they have spent a lot of time looking for firewood, and there's a lot of deforestation. So one of these strategies which we have adopted is planting lots of trees and coming up with these stoves which can use just small little twigs and branches as a way of ensuring sustainable use of some of the resources which we have internally. So I think in the interest of time, I'd like to stop here, but I'm happy we are moving in the right direction, but they still need to be done, especially in particular with funding for developing countries for renewable energy solutions, in particularly targeting clean cooking as a challenge for most of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, India and Kenya, please help me to give some time to the observers by keeping it short. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. So India is constantly working to find out what are the different solutions for the clean cooking. In 2016, the government launched a scheme called Ujjwala, wherein around 50 million families to be provided by the LPG connection. The target was later increased to 80 million in 2018. And what we have observed that, of course, the families got the connection free for the LPG, but while refilling the connection, refilling the cylinder, the rate of refilling is low. The cylinder can't reach to the remote areas. Even after giving the subsidy, the rate is very low. And again, the LPG is being imported. So we were working on how to work out some solar cooking solution or like that. So there were certain innovation challenges were organized, and we got one solution of the solar cooking using solar panels, batteries, and the induction cooking. 2 or 3 pilots we have done in 2-3 villages. One is in the Madhya Pradesh in Baitul district. There 74 families were provided with this solar cooking solution. What we have observed that the solar cooking can supplement, cannot be replace their cooking needs. In the sense, their cooking habits are different. Suppose you need certain dishes to be cooked on flame, so you can't cook on the induction cooking stove. So that problem we have observed. Also, cost was very high. It was around $1,000, and providing $1,000 to each family is difficult for the government. Our other agency, one Indian Oil Corporation, they have also done what could be the different other solution. So in the previous one, it was solar PV battery and the induction cooking stove. The second one, which was recently launched by the IOCL, is the solar thermal, wherein the solar panel is giving heat to generating a solar thermal storage, and with the solar thermal storage, you are getting your cooking needs. And they have done different models: breakfast, lunch, dinner, then only breakfast, lunch, like that, different models. Again, the cost is again constrained. For the breakfast, lunch, dinner model, it is around $400. And now we are working out how to bring down this cost. It was launched in June last year, and now the government is working on bringing down the cost. So if the cost is brought down to say $200 US, I think that will be very helpful in providing the cooking needs to the rural families. Of course, as I said, it can supplement, it can't be totally dependent. And we have another program for providing cooking solution through biogas, in wherein we are providing around $200 per family as a subsidy for building up biogas. Carbon financing, as my colleague from Norway has mentioned, we can work out what could be the carbon financing for these cooking needs. In biomass, I think when we're thinking of using pellets and clean cooking stoves, I think that could be also a solution. And there we have to work. Where the biomass is available and evident, there the improved cooking stoves using the pellets can be helpful. So we have to work out different solutions for the different areas. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kenya?
Thank you and good afternoon. Kenya also aims to achieve universal access to clean cooking by 2028, and we have expressed this commitment Several enabling activities have been undertaken. We have completed a clean cooking strategy, and this strategy is now clearly indicating the roadmap towards achievement of universal access to clean cooking. Part of the government role is really to provide that enabling environment, and as well as oversighting and resource mobilization to ensure that different actors can be able to provide these solutions. Now, the other thing is Kenya is, of course, allowing different fuels and technologies into the clean cooking space. And so we have the private sector working towards different fuels like ethanol. What was mentioned by Dr. Yumkela is part of the processes that are happening. Then, of course, we have a big program on biogas. Then we have a transitional activity on the improved cook stoves, which is being supported by GCF together with the GIZ. And these are some of the efforts that the country is undertaking. Beyond this, we have recently, during the process of the high-level dialogue on energy, we did submit a compact on clean cooking. And this is now being implemented. So what has been done currently is we've started the process of transitioning public institutions, that is including schools, hospitals, and all different public institutions who are doing cooking, so that the target is to move them away from use of biomass by 2025. We have been able to mobilize some funding from, that is local funding from government, and we target to be rolling out 500 schools every year, and we are seeking partnerships so that we can scale that. The other item that is of importance to Kenya, we have taken note of the Beyond Food initiative that was recently launched by IRENA in collaboration with the UAE, and we have expressed our interest to participate in that process. And finally, Kenya also wishes to reiterate our commitment to continue the push for the establishment of an International Day for Clean Cooking. This is something that we had raised, and our president spoke to it some time back. And we are committed to push this process because we believe this will be a mechanism that can enable the world to be reviewing the progress that is being made every year. And so this is a process that Kenya wishes to continue to provide leadership, and we are committed to doing this. And so we associate ourselves with all other players who are supporting access to clean cooking, and particularly to raise the political priority on clean cooking, which has hitherto remained low compared to electrification. So in this process, we believe we can get partners to work with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me just do a very quick round of our observers. Please, can you limit yourself to, if possible, 2 minutes? Can I start with sustainable action for all? Glenn, please.
Thank you very much, Utin. I'll be happy to try to focus my comments on the role of international cooperation and what Sustainable Energy for All has been doing in that regard. First, at a very global, at policy advocacy level, Sustainable Energy for All has been advising the past 4 G20 presidencies, and during the Saudi Arabia G20 presidency, the remit for us was how can we shape the clean cooking debate for the G20. So this is extremely important. I certainly echo the concerns of not having the profile enough, but this is one way of moving forward in terms of raising the profile amongst the 20 largest economies. It's also important because OPEC Fund has now created a program which hopefully for Kanta Yumkela will be good news compared to what he heard from others, $100 million dedicated to this challenge of clean cooking. And so we see this as a direct result of what happened in the G20 presidency several years ago. The other global advocacy opportunity was mentioned a few times, but most recently by Paul Mbuti from Kenya, in terms of the energy compacts, the UN energy compacts, a space that was created by UN Energy, certainly supported by Sustainable Energy for All. Over a dozen clean cooking energy compacts were signed. Kenya being one of the leaders, Clean Cooking Alliance with other countries being another leader in this. So that's very encouraging. And finally, very briefly, just in terms of the support to countries that are needed, Sustainable Energy for All, in terms of financing, has a universal energy facility, which is now going to include clean cooking solutions in its next phase. It has been working on mini grids, mostly in Madagascar and Benin and Sierra Leone and Nigeria, and hopefully in a few more countries. It is adding clean cooking into this results-based financing effort. And the second point, which goes to planning, is the integrated energy access planning tools that Sustainable Energy for All has been providing support on to Nigeria, to Malawi, including clean cooking. And so this is extremely important, and it goes to the point of not separating these two, electrification and clean cooking, but looking for ways of bringing them together. And I look forward to other partners, including MEX, to share some more observations in terms of that marriage between electrification and clean cooking. Thank you, Yudi.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to practical action first and then mix after that.
Thank you very much for providing an opportunity to practical action. We are an international development organization. We work with communities to develop lasting and locally owned solutions for climate benefits and health benefits. I will focus on interventions on local value chain and electric cooking. At Practical Action, we have evidences of working with communities and evidence from our work in Nepal that efficient electric cooking solutions are suitable for local menus and cooking preferences, not only in the urban communities, but for the rural and semi-urban communities. This adds to confidence of the private sector to invest in this business. The main challenge, however, is delivering the quality products to these communities at an affordable price. Therefore, we at Practical Action are working to strengthen the last mile distribution by enhancing capacity of local distributors for demand aggregation, marketing and negotiation skills, scaling strategies, including digitizing their supply chain. And of course, agency building of women by establishing them as key market actors in the form of distributors, marketing agents, and technicians, and not just the users. Mentoring, coaching, and incentivizing business expansion in rural areas through result-based financing are our key approaches. Further strengthen the value chain, there is a growing need for ensuring quality of the products, and therefore labeling and certifications are urgently needed, for which we are advocating. Extended warranty provisions, robust after sales are some of the areas which we are working on. At Practical Action, we are working to expedite the electric cooking market through the use of digital technologies in many ways. Last mile distributors and city-based suppliers are now connected through digital business-to-business platform, and demand stimulation is complemented by interactive voice responses, SMS, interactive learning videos, registering complaints through QR code and SMS. Use of call centers are some of the initiatives we have tested that can be scaled to strengthen e-cooking supply chain. Electric cooking is not only about the stoves, but also fuel, and these need to be discussed together. So we are working to facilitate conversations between private sectors and electricity service providers to collaborate together. Another urgent need we have experienced is the need for huge investments on distribution infrastructure upgradation, and rapid progress needs to be there. Therefore, an integrated plans and programs for electrification and cooking have to be implemented, for which we are facilitating together to inspire private sectors to remain in this business. We also have evidence from our work that incentivizing electricity bills would enable larger uptake of electric cooking. Therefore, to reach scale and not to leave anyone behind, one of the solutions could be cross-subsidizing the electricity tariff across different categories of electricity customers, and this is urgently required in the countries which practical action work. This all would, in return, build the confidence of the local distributors and consumers for the uptake of cooking at scale. And I would also like to thank our supporting agencies, GIZ, MEX, and the Netherlands Enterprise Agencies, who is supporting practical action to work on electric cooking. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. Simon from MEX.
Much has already been said, so I will just keep to a few headlines. Unfortunately, India just left the room when I was about to tell them that in Malawi, they are building heat battery solar home systems for $200. I know the oil one that he was talking about. Glenn over here, we used to talk about the disconnect between electricity access and clean cooking. And our political economists talked about it as a mutual neglect. Glenn pivoted us to talking about it as mutual support. Everything that has been discussed in this conference over the last day and a half and will be discussed tomorrow is about clean cooking, because clean cooking is a potential load on any electrical networks, and whether that's centralized or decentralized. As Pooja said, we've shown that it's culturally acceptable, it's possible, it's affordable. In Kenya, we've shown that you can cook for less than 50% of the charcoal price. And your moderator, your comment right at the beginning was it's urban, not rural. Well, actually, Africa will tip into more than 50% urban, said this year. And urban poverty is really strong. So modern energy cooking becomes aspirational. Why do we have people in Kampala who are connected to a strong utility, and yet 64% of them are still cooking with charcoal? And as Sheila said to me just yesterday, it's about aspirational. Why do they have mobile phones, even mobile money, and yet they're still grubbing around in soot? These are possibilities. Irena has spent yesterday talking about the coming decade. The coming decade is one where we pivot to renewable energy, strong electrical grids, centralized, decentralized. Malawi, again, women's groups assembling controllers for solar home systems. There are many possibilities. Full stop.
Thank you very much. And World Bioenergy Association, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for the World Bioenergy Association to intervene at this session. My name is Bharadwaj Kumamuru, and the WBA, we are a member-based organization with companies and associations in the bioenergy value chain, including those working in the clean cooking sector. And in the past year, we've hosted actually a working group on advanced biomass cooking with representatives from Zambia, from Lesotho, Rwanda, India, Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa, all these private sector companies who are active in the clean cooking field. And we wanted to add a couple of points from those discussions that we've had. Now, biogas, electricity, ethanol have all been mentioned in this forum. But what we've been discussing in the recent past is a particularly different pathway. One, that's a combination of advanced combustion technology. As Zimbabwe has pointed out, we need improvements in technology so that they can still continue using the same fuel. And at the same time, use of processed biomass, dried, densified biomass, such as pellets and briquettes, which are also important, as pointed out by the representative from India. And this different pathway that we are exploring, the external analysis that we've come across shows that it has already very low emissions. It is affordable, and the benefit is that it's very flexible with the feedstock. And the feedstock that we are looking at is mainly agrobiomass and residues, which is widely available already.
And coming to the question on how supply chains can be improved to meet the scale and the impact that's needed, and I wish to add 2 points on that. First is aggregation, that what we've realized is the production of densified biomass from residues is usually quite cheapest when you access it at the processing mills, whether it's rice mills, sugar mills, peanut processing, etc., and where there is already available and aggregated. And such kind of hubs, they play a very key role, we've identified, to support large markets such as urban settlements for clean cooking. And the second is technology and the type of technology. And the key learning here is that the densification technology that we are looking at should be based on local conditions. So depending on local resource availability, depending on the cost of densification, depending on the specific needs, it should vary directly from direct use to briquetting, to ethanol, to pellets, etc. So there are various technologies available, but the local circumstances are very critical. And finally, I wish to highlight a major challenge that we've seen is the lack of awareness about the market opportunity, not in the general public, but actually in the broader private sector, especially those who are working in fuel production, in equipments, and in utilities as well. And one way we are looking at, and it has already been pointed out by Netherlands and Norway, is via carbon credits as an option. And for that, we are trying to increase the knowledge and the evidence base surrounding clean cooking technologies using fuels, such as improved and timely data on actual usage. So I'll conclude here, and just wanted to conclude with saying that the WBA will be very active in this topic, and our advice is to closer cooperation between the private sector, between industry associations, the governments, but also the intergovernmental organizations like IRENA. So we thank IRENA for organizing this and for the opportunity to intervene, and we look forward to further engagement in the Assembly and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we now have two very quick virtual interventions. First of all, the World Bank, who unfortunately couldn't be here. Yabe Chang.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to intervene.
Hold on. And now, go.
Okay.
We couldn't hear you first, but now we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And thank you very much for the opportunity to intervene. I want to start by saying that the World Bank is increasing its financing to the clean cooking sector. So over the last 7 years, its portfolio has reached over 500 million and helped 43 million people to access clean or improved cooking. But still, it's a lot more need to be done, recognizing the huge investment needs. So that's why that the World Bank and SMAP launched the Clean Cooking Fund at the Climate Summit in 2019. And thanks to our funding donors, the Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark. So with the funding target of $500 million US, our ambition is to catalyze another 2 billion in public and private investment and help 200 million people to gain access to clean cooking. So we have focused our efforts in 3 interlinked areas: political commitment, knowledge and innovation, and investment. So on political commitment, we engage and identify campaigns and work with partners. And many of you are in the room to raise awareness both at the global and the country levels, such as through the HEPA, high-level dialogue on energy, SDG 7 tracking process, and events like this. So on knowledge and innovation, we develop data and analytical tools such as multi-tier framework, clean cooking planning tool, regulatory indicators in sustainable energy, country climate and development reports, CCDRs, and a toolkit for practitioners to support country dialogue and develop investment projects. We also pilot and promote innovative solutions in technologies, business models, financing approaches to leverage existing infrastructure and drive down costs. So on investment, we have mainstreamed results-based financing approach and integrated clean cooking investment in most of our energy access projects to reduce the transaction costs. So far, for Clean Cooking Fund, has approved 6 investment projects in Rwanda, Niger, Mozambique, Uganda, Chad, and Tanzania, with a total financing commitments of 41 million, which leveraged 17 million World Bank financing and help 11 million people to gain access to clean cooking. And we have a growing long list of pipeline projects. So one area I would like to highlight, also echo with some previous speakers, that we see carbon finance is a real opportunity for scaling up adoption of renewable-based clean cooking solutions. Governments, certification agencies, development partners, and the private companies all have a role to play in harnessing this opportunity while mitigating its risks. So Frank earlier mentioned that we just published a blog called Balancing Opportunity and the Risk, Harnessing Carbon Markets to Expand Clean Cooking. I will share the link later. So in the blog, we recommended actions for each player, but also showed one example in Rwanda, the Rwanda Energy Access and the Quality Improvement Projects, that the World Bank Clean Cooking Fund provided initial capital of 17 million to help the country to set up a poor RBF fund, which is managed by Rwanda Development Bank. And the fund provides RBF payments to incentivize clean cooking companies to deliver clean cooking solutions. Meanwhile, the World Bank CDEP carbon finance unit.
Could I ask you to start winding up? We're so out of time. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So it's basically provide the purchase the carbon emissions reductions, and then the carbon revenue will replenish this RBF fund. We think this approach can be replicated in many other countries. And again, thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to collaborating more with other partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll pass over to SNV.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saroz Rai with SNV, Netherlands Development Organization. Now speaking from Rwanda, Kigali. I'll be talking about biogas as a clean, renewable energy. SNV, we work in 3 sectors: agri-food, water, and energy. And under the energy sector, SNV has been involved in the biodigester or biogas sector in the last over 30 years, starting from Nepal. And then, by now, we have around 1 million household biodigesters in some 27 countries. And at the moment, we have 11 biodigester projects in 8 countries, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, funded by the Netherlands, Germany, European Union, and Sweden, and some other donors. Yes, biogas as a cooking energy. When we are talking about biogas, we, as mentioned by some speakers previously, we should not forget the other co-product, bioslurry, as an organic fertilizer, high-value fertilizer. So with that, let's say the business case for the end users enhances greatly with all the multiple benefits from the biogas and the bioslurry. So with this, the biogas bioslurry can touch up to or at least 8 sustainable development goals. So that makes the biogas really an attractive business case for the users and also for other stakeholders. Unfortunately, the investment cost can be high, roughly, let's say, $500 to $700 for a medium-sized household biodigester. But then as long as the business case is clear and we have a way to communicate that clear to the end users and other stakeholders, we can very much develop the demand, including, let's say, through credit financing. With that, let's say, all the benefits, when they're monetized, the payback period could be as low as 1 to 2 years. But unfortunately, this simple figure, it's so difficult to communicate to the end users, because most of the time they are collecting firewood for free, and then, they don't really see that as a big thing, and then they might have other priorities for whatever small money. So The struggle for us to work in the demand side is really to convince the end users with even that attractive business case. So investment subsidy is something very important, also because of the multiple benefits and the high cost. Several speakers already mentioned about the importance of carbon finance. That's a big opportunity. It is easy that a biodigester can have a revenue of $150 per year. That's a lot of money, of course, but then it needs investment and a lot of work to make it happen. And then with that, you can already work towards some kind of self-reliance for the project, and then you can use the money for the subsidy and also for other costs. But this also brings in a good quality control regime for the biodigester biogas plants to be operated for a longer period of time.
Could I please ask you to wind up because we're almost out of time.
So as I mentioned, credit financing is very important, not just for the end users, also for equity angle and to include the poorer households. But the credit financing is also important for the private sector. Now, I can just say that for the sustained market development, of course, value chain development, particularly local value chain development in partnership with the government at different levels is very important. Government's role is important also for coordination among different agencies and to make it the market inclusive with extra subsidy or whatever other means. Biogas can be constructed locally with brick and mortar technology or can be prefabricated. The prefabricated ones are becoming very much attractive in the market with the better quality and then higher life and then better warranty. So to end my intervention, SNV, we see a new paradigm emerging in the biodigester biogas market development. That is with prefabricated biodigesters, the carbon finance, and possible remote monitoring and digitalization, the whole thing, so that a market can be really developed in a sustained way with all the transparency and accountability required. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to finally wind up, I give 2 minutes to GIZ. You've promised 2 minutes, and a final 1 minute to Sheila from Energia. Please.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the floor. So I really have to speed up. So GIZ is working in a lot of different fields and has a long history of cooking experience in different countries. So first of all, it is a big success that the topic of clean cooking has found its way to the IRENA assembly with this high-level international audience and which is willing to dedicate itself to the topic and with great commitment. So many important aspects are already mentioned, so I would like to make only some comments. We have still to take more attention from the bottom up. So what is really needed by the user, by the people, and then consider what is technical possible. So starting from the household level, moving to the communities, then to the country, and then to the region. We should take into account the knowledge and also the wisdom of local people. So like the farmers did, who traditionally take care of their land as a basic of their living. So with integrated farming instead of monoculture, we also should think to integrated cooking systems. We have many organizations, governmental and non-governmental, who have been dealing with clean cooking for years and for decades. But however, the topic of clean cooking still has not attracted the lobby, which is really, really needed for big changes. So we had times with the clean cooking was seen under the health aspect, then under the forestry, also under gender, and now it's discovered under the climate aspects.
Sorry, can I ask you to wind up? My colleagues are close to killing me for not giving them the room, please.
One more sentence. So it's discovered under the climate aspect, under the bigger umbrella of the global climate change discourse. So how we really hope that the topic, clean cooking, will finally achieve a major breakthrough
and that the project to achieving the universal access to to clean cooking solutions, including modern solutions like e-cooking, also in the context of energy transition. So we hope that will speed up the fast track, which is really, really needed to bring clean cooking solutions into the focus to more different integrated approaches.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The final word to Sheila. You promised 1 minute, right? Your
Yes,
challenge.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ute, for allowing me to make my 1 minute intervention as a backbencher, as alluded to by Hans Olof. Let me just start by congratulating Irena for organizing this session and express my very, very strong wish that going forward, clean cooking will be a central part of the future Irena assemblies, particularly in opening and plenary sessions, as already mentioned by Norway and the Netherlands. I appreciate all comments made and focus my interventions on underscoring the previous comments that are changing the narrative, really changing and driving the narrative on gender and clean cooking from seeing women as victims or passive beneficiaries, receiving improved solutions delivered by well-meaning actors, to one that positions women as agents of change for a clean cooking revolution and critical tool for advancing gender equality. As empirical evidence has shown us, and as we've heard today, women's agency as household decision makers and consumers are essential to widespread adoption and use. Their involvement as employees and entrepreneurs drives distribution chains in difficult markets segments that challenge conventional private sector. Their leadership in policy and finance is essential to achieving progress at scale. Energy is working with over 8,000 women entrepreneurs operating and owning renewable energy businesses that deliver energy access, sometimes the first access to over 6 million consumers. We also engage with development partners like NDEV, the Nepal Electricity Authority, and the Netherlands Development Agency to mainstream a gender transformative agenda in the energy access progress and clean cooking solutions. And also engage in platforms that are changing the SDG and the climate agenda, such as the SDG 7 Technical Advisory Group, the Health and Energy Platform for Action, the Clean Cooking Alliance. We congratulate champion governments from around the table here today for the political role and encourage them to show us leadership in ensuring clean cooking is part of the post-2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Let me close by just the words of one of my role models, Mary Robertson, who stated at COP27 that forward-thinking actors that are looking to drive a just and inclusive energy transition are those that engage the potential of women as an opportunity for growth and resilient pathways of change, and believe in gender transformative interventions not only as smart business, but as the right and just way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And thank you for all the contributions we've had here. I'm sure you've also, like me, found it was a really interesting session. And while it was the first at the IRENA Assembly, we'll do our best to make sure it's not the last. Thank you.